Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. This is 1989. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And back with us tonight, he took a month off, but we also have our wonderful guest, a dynamo of a human being. And he
Fresh
is
off his suspension.
Hey, I'm back. And it was I didn't take a month off. I was forced to be a month off. This is Geoff coming back at you here in 1989.
Yeah, forced, I guess, is true, but not because we don't want you. There's just a lot of different factors that get put into this.
Absolutely. No, I understand.
All right, so 1989 was a really awesome year, and we had some great choices. Probably could have chose many more things than we did. In fact, if this thing goes well, maybe we'll redo this year some other time. But it was also, when I did my memories, a pretty great year to think back on, and I really have very vivid memories for being so long ago. It was easy to kind of come back to what was going on. It was kind of an important year in my life in some ways. But, Gifford, you're our guest, so why don't you tell us what you remember about 1989? In fact, this year was actually kind of your request, too, so...
Yes.
Let's throw that out there. That the reason why we're doing 89 is because the Giff
This is the year that Gifford peaked.
And what Giff wants...
It's been all downhill. It's been all downhill since 89. No, and I picked 89 because the movies of 1989 for me are so impressive. I think at the impressionable age of 12 going on 13, music and movies of that time will always stick with you. But for 1989,
I had fun with the music list here.
Oh
yeah.
Man,
like more than I thought, than I realized. It was pretty good.
So for 1989, that of course was the end of 7th grade and the beginning of 8th grade for the three of us. In 7th grade, I continued my whirlwind romance with Lori. We dated for that entire year of 7th grade, if I remember correctly. One of the things that I remember from that year was the Happy Days musical was put on. Pete, I don't remember what your role was in that. Did you have a role in the musical?
I was an understudy to, I think, Potsy.
Okay. Well, that's funny you say that because if I remember correctly, I got the part of Potsy, but in the script I had to kiss a girl. And I didn't want to kiss the girl that got the part.
Wow.
So
I don't remember that at all.
We'll talk offline on who that girl was.
Okay. Well, yes, I will.
I was also an understudy, and it was for like one of the very biggest parts, and I was panicked that this person wouldn't die because I didn't know a single line. Like, I didn't study it. Somebody just forced me into, he'll be the understudy.
I think, that's how I got it, too.
If it would have occurred that I had to play that role that night,
what was the role?
I can't remember. It was one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
I can't remember who. I guess I don't want to throw any specifics out about it. All I know is, though, this is the one time in my life where I got the role of a dancer. And I was with you, Giff. Right. It's great.
And that's what I really remember from that. And Brad's partner was Sarah.
Sarah was my partner.
And we did a dance scene just kind of in the back, but I remember
there were four couples that were dancers that were like in the sides and the back.
That's right.
Many of the numbers.
But the four of us usually practiced together. Like
because we were on the left side of the stage.
Yep.
Because we were split. Yeah, we were stage left.
Yep. So we were in front of the booths, and so I remember getting up on the table to dance and jumping off of it. But the table was like one of those old style booths, so the table only had one big thick leg on it. So if you went too far back or too far forward, it was gonna tip over.
It was all over.
You had to be careful. But
it's a blooper waiting to happen.
That was where
I actually have the VHS of this performance still.
You're kidding.
And when I was cleaning some stuff out, I watched, like, it's not great quality. You can't hear and see a lot of it, but like you can see what's going on. And I distinctly noticed when we jump off the tables.
Yep.
Like, so if you ever want to try to watch that,
I would.
Why would you have ever had that in the first place?
Well, Well, I'm sure a lot of people had it that were in the play.
I never had it.
Because we only performed.
Well, I had a starring role, Pete.
I did not.
He was back left dancer, for crying out loud, Pete.
All right.
So, yeah,
well, that makes sense.
I forewent my acting and singing for that play and just stuck to the dancing. I didn't want to outshine everybody else with my triple threat potential. So really I just went with the dancing on that. One of the big things I remember from that year and all of middle school was the dances. Oh, yeah. And the third was an epic dance. I remember not necessarily the dance, but what occurred afterwards outside on the side of the gym with a bunch of the couples, which was a lot of fun as we were hanging out waiting for parents to show up. And another,
I was not involved.
No, really?
No.
Oh,
I wasn't in that one either.
I just remember Buck was there. That was outstanding. So the last thing I'll just kind of mention for this year, before I let you guys have a shot at it, was I remember in speech class.
Speech class?
Yeah, we gave speeches, and I remember the teacher told us that while a speech was going on, if you find the material offensive, that you were allowed to stand up and go out into the hallway.
Okay, I know. It was an English class, and we were doing
song
analysis, right?
You could give a speech on whatever you wanted, I thought.
No, it was there's a specific assignment where you had to pick a song and analyze the lyrics, and that was your speech in English class.
Good. See, so I told you guys beforehand you'd have to correct me on this, but what I remember from this was that if you found a speech offensive, you were allowed to stand up and go outside. And I don't remember who it was, but they gave us, their speech was on a New Kids song, and all the boys in class stood up and went out and stood in the hallway during it because we found
that. We were so immature.
It was
because you could have lyrics or a song that might be offensive, and somebody like I don't know, Two Live Crew was big at the time. Not that anybody was doing that But yeah, we thought that was really funny.
I still think it's funny. It was a total dick move, but I thought
it was.
So that kind of wraps up a few of my memories from '89. I will let Brad enthrall us with some of his.
All right. Well, so yeah, you kind of covered middle school, which was obviously the biggest thing, and I mean, these really were like seventh grade. One of my high points as far as like fitting in with like people and even different grade levels. Like when we were drummers and we were friends with 8th grade drummers in the back, and like I felt less uncomfortable that year probably than most every other year of my life. So that's great.
Including right now.
Yeah. But middle school, I mean, it was middle school, but I really have a lot of fond memories of it, and you nailed some of the big ones. This though was a very stressful year for me because this is the last full year that I lived on our farm. And so I would spend my summers in town at my grandparents'. My parents were at work, and so that was great because I'd go hang out with Pete and Hank, and we'd go to the pool every day or go golfing and just ride bikes around. But during this year, my dad had been going through all these different job situations, and he had been working in Sioux Falls, and like I don't even have that much of a memory of this, but he was gone for like a week or 2 weeks at a time, or at least for the weekdays, and then would come home, and I think he was staying with my aunt and uncle who lived in Sioux Falls. And we were going to move to Sioux Falls. And that was like my number one nightmare as a kid, was switching schools. And especially at that age, like, you got all your friends, you've been with them for so long in a small town, and it was scary. We went to Sioux Falls, we even like toured houses, and like it was official. And then this is in 1990 now, but we got, luckily something else worked out and we stayed, but it was literally like last minute. And so
where did he wind up working there, Brad?
What's that?
Where did he wind up working, Brad?
Oh, well, they had already been working for your dad off and on, but yeah, he was working.
You're welcome.
And he had many other different jobs too. But anyway, my life was saved. It was a lot of anxiety that year, and thank God I didn't have to move.
Yeah.
This was also the year my sister went to college and graduated from high school, which meant her and my brother were both out of the house. So I was like on my own with no
You're
siblings.
An only child now. I know the feeling.
They're so much older than me, so that wasn't necessarily a bad thing because I was old enough now to like, not care that much. But still, it was like.
I hope they're not listening.
You're cut loose.
Like, I have my own friends. I'm starting to do my own things. They're not hanging out with me anyway. They're, when they're in high school,
cool
they
for
can
you.
hang out with me.
Right.
And then two other quick things. So this is also the year I took my first big trip and went on a plane. And Pete, do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So
California.
We went to California, and your family took a trip to California, and you got to bring a friend for some reason. And I almost turned this down. I told my mom I don't want to go because I was that scared to fly. I'd never flown, and I was just sure we were going to crash. And she convinced me to go, and I still have very vivid, wonderful memories of that trip, and it was so nice of you guys to bring me. And then finally, this is also the year I went to my very first Gopher basketball game at Williams Arena with my brother who was in college, and it was an all-time classic game. They beat Iowa, who was ranked number 4 in the country. We beat them by 2 points on a last-second shot, and that was like the first big win of the Gophers coming out of scandals that they had and becoming good again. And I have been a huge Super Freak fan ever since, and it started that year specifically. I can still picture that game, and it was awesome. So lots of the only really bad thing was the maybe moving, but the rest of it was like pretty awesome, pretty great year.
It definitely was. So
do
Pete, you have any more to add, or should I jump in?
No, I think I'm all done. So we're going to talk about your choice tonight, so you can talk about your memories and then take us through.
Yeah, well, you started to touch on my best memory from that year was actually the year before, in 1988, was the year that we had moved into town, and that was a big deal, having grown up on the farm and then moving into town. It was a small town, but still, it made a huge difference, in your life when you're that age. Now, we moved into town, and because you were in town all the time, we had started to form our own little circle. So it was you and me and a friend of ours named Haken and another one named Dan. And we had my parents, the house that they had bought, they had also purchased the adjacent lots next to it. So they owned actually, I think like 6 or 7 lots in that. So we basically just had a huge backyard in town. And on a nightly basis, we would just we'd play baseball every single night. Basically, it was the 4 of us. Sometimes we'd get somebody else involved or whatever, but we'd just make up rules and all that kind of stuff. If it was raining, we would get together and then we'd play Nintendo or whatever. If it was nice out, pretty much many days it was all afternoon, and then you'd go have a quick dinner and then come back out.
The 4 of us also played a lot of tennis. We played
a lot of tennis, yes.
Basketball, baseball, and Nintendo. It was like nonstop, one of those 4 things, I think.
Yeah, you look back on it, what great habits we had. I mean, exercising all the time.
We were
I wish I got that much exercise. Yeah. And so, it was some really great memories. Sometimes we would go down to the baseball fields. I don't know if you did as much, but me and Haken would go down and do that quite a bit, just because it was fun to be on a real baseball field. And
I remember
play
I did
that
not
way.
go very often, but I remember you guys going and coming back from the fields, like I don't know, thinking you were practicing or something.
See, I was still on the farm at this point, so I was coming back from different kind of fields.
Yeah,
you guys talked about your.
Well, I was
your
on the farm
activity,
too, but I spent all day summer in town, so I got lucky that way.
And Gifford, you were all the way in Russell, which is 1,000 miles away at that point. At that stage in your life, so
it is. It's a world away at that point.
Yes. But as I was looking back on that year and all of the music that really did mean a lot to me in my entire life, I was thinking about, okay, what do I want to break down for tonight's episode? So when I look back on it and think of all of the musicians, we've talked about Nirvana, we've talked about some other really important bands to me. And as I think about who was probably, in my opinion, maybe the perfect musician in terms of, as far as checking all the boxes, who is a great rock and roll artist who has lyrics that everybody knows and everybody loves and can sing along and just have a great time to. The person that probably, yes.
I'll give you an example when you're done talking.
Okay. And the person that I think stands out as far as really checking every single box that nobody can possibly hate, in my opinion, is Tom Petty. You think about some
Nobody
of the
hates
other
Tom
artists.
Petty. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
there are better musicians when you think about like Prince, but I can see why certain people don't like Prince. We've even talked about like his songs get long and boring sometimes, and if you're not into all the guitar or all the sexuality or whatever, that's more power to you. But or even like the Foo Fighters, maybe for some people they're too heavy or whatever. Or
Well, every
Nirvana,
band has haters.
too
You're right,
depressing.
but I can't think of Tom Petty. That is a great point.
Tom Petty has no haters, and it's because he's got a little something for everybody. Like I said, his lyrics are easy to understand. You can sing along to him. You understand where he's coming from. I think he's authentic, and which is big for me. And I think nobody anymore is authentic as far as artists. There's hardly anybody anyway, and so and. Where I think his top album, probably, in my opinion, I actually listened to the Greatest Hits album more, especially in college, because it was so good, start to finish, every single song. But his top individual album was probably Full Moon Fever, which came out in 1989. So that's the album that I kind of wanted to break down. You see what I did there? No, I didn't.
I got it. Tom Petty.
I got it.
Yeah. But so just kind of starting from the top. I mean, the first few songs.
Can I throw
yeah,
in?
Go ahead, Brad. Please do.
So tomorrow in my morning class, we're playing a Name That Tune, and so I just put together some songs, and I try to put in some like older ones too that a lot of people would know. And I was playing them tonight at dinner for my kids to see what they would know. And one of the songs on there tomorrow was Free Fallin'. And like 3 seconds in, my daughter yelled out, "Free Fallin'." Like and that's not even one that like I have played like and said, "You listen to this." Like
you do that a lot, but
I
maybe
do.
not on this one.
But so I was so proud and happy, and then it just fit right in with what you said. Like, and my son doesn't know the name necessarily, but he knew it right away too. Like they both knew it, and so there you go. And she's in 7th grade, by the way. So that's what I'm saying. She's not like your Tom Petty demographic.
No,
aficionado, right? But I think one point that I wanted to bring, like even a lot of his songs, even if you've never heard the song before, you can be singing along by the second verse, or like you can catch on to
probably hum along,
catch on to the beat, touch. Yeah, that's right. But the first song on the album is "Free Fallin'," which is the one that everybody knows. It's really the ultimate Tom Petty album, or Tom Petty anthem. It's the one that I'm always singing to the top of my lungs every time I hear it, and usually I'm alone, which is probably a good thing. It was, it was in the movie Jerry Maguire. Do you remember that scene where he's in his car, like towards the beginning?
Be watching that.
It's not too far into the movie, but he's in his car, and the song comes on, and he's just like going nuts to it. And that's me when this song comes on a lot when I'm in the car. And I actually remember, like, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had to go to California for my job, and I had to drive. I had to fly to LAX and then rent a car and drive north about an hour. And so you're just driving, listening to music and everything. And I wasn't actually listening to Tom Petty at the time, but it was fun because if you go, it's like all of the streets that he names. It's like if you're on the 5 going north, it's Ventura Boulevard, it's Mulholland.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was just kind of cool. You can't get the song out of your head. And then you see Santa Monica Boulevard, and I'm like, now I can't get Sheryl Crow out of my head.
Forever clear.
Right. So that was the first one. Won't Back Down. That's the one that really takes me to back to college. We listen to that one all the time. Love Is a Long Road. That one kind of is almost Bob Dylan like. And there's a lot of comparisons to be made between Tom Petty and Bob Dylan too. But it's kind of a little bit intentionally off key. It's almost that we've talked about before, the phrase "perfectly imperfect." That's kind of what I thought of that song, where he's mumbling a little bit, and I thought that song had a really cool guitar riff. Face in the Crowd was good, and then Running Down the Dream. Now, this is one that I've got a very specific memory of because I was playing that Greatest Hits album when I'm leaving home and driving to college, as I've got all my stuff packed in my car. My parents had a bunch of stuff in their car, and they're in a separate vehicle, so I'm just by myself driving to Mankato, and this song comes on. And it was a beautiful day when I was driving to Mankato, so the song fit perfectly, and I just remember thinking, this is it. I'm going to my future, leaving my hometown behind, and what's going to happen, I don't know. But that's like the perfect song for that situation, because that's exactly what it's all about, running down the dream.
I always mistook that song, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but it would have a very different meaning if you thought the words were running down a drain, which is what I thought it was at first.
That's the opposite meaning there, Brad.
And then somebody, I don't know, my brother or
way less inspiration,
was like messing with me and told me that is what it is, I think, and I got really confused, and so
yeah, a little different meaning in that song.
Yeah. But I bet that's not a very uncommon mistake. It's really easy to hear that there.
That's not one that I've ever thought before.
You've never even thought of that?
I don't think I have. No, I just always... I don't remember thinking that. Maybe I did the first time that I heard it or something, but no, I don't know.
Humor him, Pete. You never heard it. Come on. He's an idiot.
Hey, you don't have to. I'm okay.
When I listened to this album, and I had heard the album way back when, but I hadn't listened to it in a really long time. But now, for preparation for this episode, listening to it, the song "Feel a Whole Lot Better," the song that popped into my head, because I like to compare, like, what other song does this one make me think of? This one sounded like "Here Comes the Sun." You know that song?
Oh,
here comes the sun. Do 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 do. So that was just what jumped into my head there, and. You're So Bad is a fun, like an old folk song. That's a really cool song. Depending on You was good. Apartment Song. That is the authentic Tom Petty song. I thought, like, of all the not really well-known songs, this is probably my favorite. And did you know Stevie Nicks is on this one? No. She does, like, backup vocals.
Oh, does she? Okay.
Yes, she does. And that kind of sounds a little bit like another Tom Petty song. You don't know how it feels.
Sure.
To me. And then it wraps up kind of with the last three. All Right for Now, which is almost like a lullaby, kind of a beautiful song. A Mind with a Heart of Its Own. The guitar riff there, that one made me think of the Fratellis a little bit. On that song, creeping up the back steps. Just when I was listening to the guitar riff, and maybe I don't know if you had that same thought or not, Brad.
No.
And then,
but I'll take it.
Like Gifford, I don't know if you know the Fratellis that well, but
I don't. But I will say,
you would know. They sing the song "Chelsea Dagger" that they play like hockey games.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that song.
So yes, that's the one that everybody knows.
So I will say that A Mind with a Heart of Its Own. I was kind of going through ranking the songs. I don't get how that wasn't a bigger hit. I love that song.
Well, I don't think that was a single.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Well, no, you're saying it should have been a single.
I think it should have been a big hit.
Which one? We said A Mind with a Heart of Its Own?
Yeah, I put that as my number.
To me, that song's okay, but it's like bottom half for me on this.
Oh, I like the guitar riff. I like the beat.
It's a catchy song.
It's catchy. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
think it's the lyrics that I just don't quite get into as much as the other ones.
Yeah, I absolutely love that song. I put that third on my list for the songs on the album. And as a matter of fact, I just think it's so good.
It is. I think it's a really good song as well. And the one that I thought should have been a bigger hit was the Apartment Song, the one that I just spoke to. That was kind of my thought on that.
That could be. I mean, that's why it's a great album.
Right.
It is. It really is top to bottom.
Do you have something else to add quick, Pete, or you want us to go now or talk more?
No, other than Zombie Zoo, which I thought was just a really good finishing touch to the album. But I didn't have any other major comments, so we can dive into your comments there, Brad.
I was really excited when you picked this because I could have picked it myself, thought about picking it before you did, and then when you did, I was so happy because that meant I could pick something else. And this album is one of my all-time favorites. I consider it one of the greatest driving road albums that there is. You talked about going to college. I had like between 5 and 10 CDs that like every time I drove home, the 3-hour trip back and forth, I would listen to these same ones over and over again, and I would just never get sick of them because they were just great. And this was one of those main staples. Mm-hmm. And so I absolutely love this album. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's always in my rotation. For me, side one is okay. It's the one that has all the big hits,
right?
Which, Free Fallin' and Running Down a Dream and I Won't Back Down, which I love all those songs, but I've heard those so many times that like when I'm listening to the album, it's almost like I'd rather skip through those, even though I love them. A Face in the Crowd is probably my least favorite one. It's not a bad song, but it's a slow song, but to me it's just a little too slow. And so I don't mind that it gives you that little slow piece in between some of the other bigger ones, but that's probably my least favorite song. So side one's okay, but side two to me is just, this is where it's brilliant. And I love, and you didn't mention this, but so I don't know if you heard this when you listened, but on the CD, after Running Down a Dream, he comes on and he talks to you. And he says, "Hello, CD listeners." And he takes a break because people that had a vinyl or a tape would have to flip it over. And he wanted to keep that, at least have you sit and wait for a minute so that it was like you had this other sort of media. And this came out in '89, which is right when CDs are like totally taking off, but you still had those other, especially cassettes, you had those other formats out there. And so he's appeasing these formats, and it was just such this weird kind of unique touch. And I love that he did that. And it's him talking, it's his voice, and it's just kind of fun.
Can I back up to one thing that you said there, Brad?
Yeah.
You used the word peef. What? I've not heard that before. Did I hear that right?
I don't think you did.
No.
What was the context?
You said there was a little peef in between there. You said peace. Oh, I thought you said peef. I heard you wrong. I was like,
what here in peef. Brad's here and running down the drain. What the heck is going on here?
I was like, what?
Nonsense.
I'll cut that out. I'll cut that.
All right. Anyway,
I'm not going to cut it out because I'm going to be too lazy to cut it out. No.
Yeah.
Side two, though, it starts with I consider. So you said the Apartment song is like your number one. I think there is a stretch of just the 5 most perfect, brilliant Tom Petty songs in a row. And it starts with Feel a Whole Lot Better, which is just one of the catchiest songs. Mm-hmm. You cannot stop singing to it. You're So Bad, which is just awesome, and the lyrics are great. And just right from the beginning, my sister got lucky and married a yuppie. What a great line. Depending on You really could be maybe my favorite Tom Petty song. When I listen to it, I'm like, good God, this song is amazing. It just makes you feel so good. And again, you can sing along to it. I also love the Apartment song. And then All Right for Now, you called it kind of a lullaby. I absolutely love that. Those 5 songs, if that was the whole album, I would be fine. But then you have all these other great songs too. But to me, it's that stretch that just nails this thing, and it's so great. And then I do like A Mind with a Heart of Its Own. And Zombie Zoo is kind of catchy, but I just think the lyrics are so weird. It's like, it is
weird, yeah.
It's like I like it, but it also rubs me the wrong way. So I'm glad it's the last song because if you're not, we can just shut it off if you want. But it's like a catchy song. It has a good beat to it and everything. But I don't know, Zombie Zoo. Something about it just doesn't quite fit right. So
well, I was kind of thinking he should have switched the last 2 songs because then at least you end on a high a little bit. You know what I mean? You always talk about the order of songs and what makes a great album, and that's when I was listening to it. That's just what I kind of thought about switching that. But what do I know about producing?
I could see All Right for Now being a great finisher too, but I would rather not have it buried after a couple others that I don't like as much. So I'm glad it's where it is, because that little stretch is something that I never get sick of hearing. What'd you think, Giff?
Well, you guys kind of covered it all. I'll just add a couple things here, because these songs, you listen to them and they take you back to this time in history, but I'm one who listens to a lot of classic rock, classic music, which now of course is into 80s, 90s. So I hear these songs all the time and I absolutely love listening to them. But for me, when I hear Free Falling, I always go back to a dance in middle school, and I was out in the hallway because we had our dances in the lunchroom, and I was out in the hallway talking to somebody, and this song came on, and everybody just went nuts, and you're just out there singing.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
I mean, that is the memory that Free Falling always takes me back to, because you've heard it a million times, you've seen it in other media, you have your own memories of it through college and things of that, but it always...
How many keg parties did this come on, and everyone's got their arms around each other and just wailing it, and it...
Yeah. But
you can fix a lot of politics if you just listen to that song over and over.
Yeah.
One other note I had, the video for You're So Bad, the Yuppie is played by Charles Rocket. And Charles Rocket is Nicholas Andre in Dumb and Dumber. The bad guy in Dumb and Dumber, the guy who kidnaps... what's your
right?
Yeah. I was watching the video and I thought, what is it? I knew he was from something. I could see his face, but I couldn't remember what the movie was. But anyway, little bit.
I didn't even know there was a video. I'll have to probably check that out.
Yeah. So he's the Yuppie. So that's pretty much all I had, because you guys did such a wonderful job of covering it.
All right. Well, maybe you want to start off. Then we'll finish up with our top albums or songs or whatever you want to bring up here. So why don't you go first, Giff?
Sure. I went with albums. And
I did too, but then I listed some other songs that I just couldn't, because they're just in your mind from this time period and from dances, like you said. So
yeah,
I have albums and then I have a list of songs.
See, and I figured you would, because you like to take up a lot of time and have all your lists. Kidding, of course. But when I was going through the albums, you can take another
month off.
There are so many albums on here that I have that are not in my top 5. So I'm going to go through and do a few extra. So I've got Loked After Dark on here. Tone Loc's first album with Wild Thing, Funky Cold Medina next episode.
I just heard Funky Cold Medina on the radio 2 days ago, and I'm thinking...
I did too. Are you kidding me?
And I was thinking of this podcast because I was just, and I knew it was 89 and middle school dances and...
No, it wasn't Funky Cold. It was Wild Thing that I heard.
Wild, yeah. I heard Funky Cold Medina not that long ago as well. Then, of course, if you go with just song, Bust a Move from Young MC off his Cold Stone Rhymin' album is just phenomenal. As well as another album that I really liked, a couple country albums, Beyond the Neon, Blue Neon by George Strait, Gotten Good at Goodbye, Ace in the Hole, a couple great songs off of there. Also Clint Black's debut album of Killing Time. But my top 5, and of course you have to include Girl, You Know It's True by Milli Vanilli, just because they had so many hits off of it.
Oh, it's coming.
But I did not have it in my top 5. So I actually have a top 7. Number 7, Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue.
That's 89, huh?
Yep.
We overlap.
Number 6, I've got Aerosmith's Pump album. Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun.
Oh, yeah.
Off of there. Just so good. But my number 5 is Skid Row's debut album, Skid Row. 18 in Life, Youth Gone Wild. I Remember You. I mean, God, so many bangers off of that album. I absolutely love it. Like a Prayer by Madonna at my number 4. Number 3, I put in Full Moon Fever, Tom Petty. Obviously, a lot of great songs that we covered here. Number 2, I had Rhythm Nation, Janet Jackson.
Nice.
And my number 1, the debut by my all-time favorite artist, Garth Brooks' debut album, Garth Brooks. So many good songs.
I had that one.
Yeah.
Did you?
So those are my
Yes.
albums of 89 that I loved.
All right, we had you mentioned some things that I have here. So for my songs first, I had the Tone Loc songs down, and then I had Debbie Gibson, "Lost in Your Eyes," because
Yep.
I loved her. But I didn't have the
Oh,
second album.
God,
I only had Out of the Blue, not Electric Youth. Pete had that one.
I got
But
it
that's
for
a
my
great
birthday.
I was at that birthday.
Yes.
Bad English, When I See You Smile. Remember how great that song was? And they played it
Oh,
like
yes.
at the
So
end of
good.
our 8th grade year, I think. At some send I mean, we were looking at pictures of all of us smiling on like a slideshow.
Yep.
I totally remember that. I had Skid Row. I had Warrant also started that year with Heaven
Yep.
and the Down Boys.
Yep.
Fine Young Cannibals, She Drives Me Crazy. You couldn't avoid that song.
No.
One that I wouldn't have known until probably a little later, but the Pixies, Here Comes Your Man, which is one of my all-time favorite like alternative songs. Just a wonderful song. Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule. He started out that year. Technotronic, Pump Up the Jam. And then the last one I had, so Nine Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine came out that year.
Yes.
It had Like a Hole's on it, and I wanted to mention, but Head Like a Hole wasn't actually released until 1990. So
Sir.
that is like, I love that song, big time. All right, I actually
You're
have
not going to add the Divinals in there?
They're like 91.
Oh, that wasn't off of. They had an album in 89. I guess I didn't look it up.
Well, the big song was 91. I Touch Myself was because
There
we
it
listened
is.
to that on our Dallas trip. I mean,
All right. Button
right.
Bar, Pete. Isolate that for Button Bar.
I actually
Okay.
had 9 albums, and my top 2 are ones that I actually owned on tape and know I listened to during that year. Some of the others maybe I listened to like a year later. But so number 1, you did mention Young MC. When I think of 8th grade, 7th grade, and I heard Bust a Move one time not long ago.
Oh,
Oh my God, that was like my thing. That was my favorite thing.
yeah.
Milli Vanilli was my number 2 then, because I had that tape. And speaking of the English assignment where you had to analyze a song, my choice was "Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You." Not "Girl, You Know It's True," but the slow like ballad.
Oh,
Girl,
that's a great one.
that's a great.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Then I had number 3. I had my Prince Batman. Although we're going to talk about that next week, and that would not be on my list anymore. Just to give you a sneak preview.
Sure.
But when I thought back, I'm like, yeah, I loved that one. I had that and listened to it a lot. The B-52's Cosmic Thing came out, but I still think of like Love Shack probably a year or 2 later. But they came out in '89.
Yep.
The other album that I almost chose this for my pick. I ended up picking Batman, but I kind of wanted to do this one just because it would be different, a different choice for me, and something to really revisit. But you mentioned Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with that. That was the first CD I ever bought.
So many great songs.
And I meant to listen to it again, and I haven't yet, but I will. But so if we ever do this thing again, maybe that'll be my 89 choice. But like, that was great. I love that. I met Aerosmith Pump, you said, Full Moon Fever I had, and then 2 others. The End of the Innocence by Don Henley, which was great. And then one that I didn't know until later, but one of my all-time favorite artists is Chris Isaak, and his album Heart-Shaped World came out that year. And that's the one that has Wicked Game, which is a
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, holy crap for music. That
What a
was
year.
And that's just scratching the surface there, but
Mm-hmm.
that was awesome.
So my list, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Are you
Okay.
done?
You want me to do more?
No, you can
I'll
go
find
on. I don't
something
care. My list basically overlapped. I think everything except one that I hadn't heard mentioned, but I will go through my list and leave that
we
one
covered
last.
pretty much everything.
Right, I was gonna say,
went
we
far
talked
beyond the
about-
top 5.
Dr. Feelgood I had written down, Cosmic Thing by B-52s, Stone Cold Ryman I listened to. I had that on tape, and I remember listening to that one all the time.
Principal's
top to bottom. I would listen to the whole album, and I would rewind it and play it again. And Girl, You Know It's True, Full Moon Fever, which we already talked about. I didn't hear, did you mention the Bengals, Eternal Flame?
Oh. No, we didn't.
That was the one that I had written down. Brad, I just knew that you were going to have that one, Brad.
Well, I'm guessing
you didn't.
The album probably didn't come out that year, but maybe the song. Is that what you found? Because
I found it on my when I looked it up. I thought that was.
Well, that's a great choice.
Okay, maybe I am wrong, or maybe I just looked at
that would have for
I
sure
saw
been a
that
song
one, too,
I would
when I
have
was
mentioned.
going through all the albums.
Yes. But just a fantastic year for music and movies too, which we'll talk about a little bit in our upcoming episodes. Does anybody have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we got
all right.
all the notes
we got
we
it.
have here, and I'm just Pete.
So
I just want to say, I love your choice, and you're brilliant. So thank you.
I know that. Thank you. All right, we will wrap it up with this episode, and we will play a little. Oh,
since you asked,
my God!
Just you asked. So I thought
okay, go for it.
Eternal Flame came out in 1988, or at least the album did.
Okay.
Oh,
so that's why. Maybe the song though was big in 88.
Sorry,
but the album.
Sorry. Maybe that's what I saw.
No,
okay,
if the song was big that year. That's still a good choice.
Okay. Well, in that case, we will wrap it up, and we will be talking a little Batman in the next episode of Pop Culture Yearbook. And so now we're going to play a little Preacher Row for you. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. Something else in it will be my last. And start to me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.